Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hi, this is The Author Show, and I'm your host, Linda Thompson. Before I introduce our guests, just a quick reminder that selected interviews are available in our iPhone app, which can be downloaded in the App Store, as well as on TV, on the Roku channel and Amazon Fire TV. Our app name on all platforms is The Author Show. When J.R. Johnson admits to his bride of 3 days that they married under false premises, what do you think happens? Well, that question is answered in Jim Flynn's latest novel, Better Than Ever. Trillion is the new billion. Even the title just shouts action thriller, and Jim joins us to share more about JR's dilemma. Jim, welcome to The Author Show.
Well, thank you, Linda, but the title is Better Than Even.
I'm sorry about that. Better Than Even. Okay, so Jim, will you give us a quick overview of Better Than Even?
Yes, it was $1.5 billion. JR's new wife didn't take it well when he told her. How does JR recover the money? She doesn't care. Get out, JR, until you get it back. The U.S. president tells JR he wants to help. A vindictive dictator is out to ruin him. JR doesn't know if he can trust a surprising new ally or if it's a murderous trap.
Oh my gosh. So what served as the inspiration for your storyline in Better Than Even?
Well, it's the third in a series, and I think of my series as being like a long-form TV show, like The Americans or Dexter or Breaking Bad. This book begins the day after the second book ends. I don't want to ruin the second book, but he's kind of got himself in a tight spot as the third book opens.
It sounds like it. So how many books do you have planned for your series?
Well, I'm working on the fourth right now, and I'm told that you should write at least 10, and I think I've got 10 kind of mentally lined up.
Interesting. So will the same characters appear in all 10 books?
Assuming they live, because there's a lot of bad people. There's a lot of bad people. Some of the characters who began in the first book haven't made it this far, but JR, our protagonist, is still with us.
Who do you think would be the ideal reader for Better Than Even?
Well, that's an interesting question. And because of the power of demographic advertising, I've found the best responses I get are people who read Harlan Coben, Elmore Leonard, and Nelson DeMille. And what all three of those people, and I'm not claiming I'm as good a writer as them, but what I have in common with them is thrillers with a sense of humor. A lot of thrillers, there's no humor. It's just action, 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 and then the good guy wins in the end. My first book was not part of this series. It was a fictional, humorous memoir. And it was well received for an indie author that nobody knew who I was. And I got some really good reviews and encouragement from professional authors, from people I didn't know. And they all said the same thing, which is, you're really good at humor. That's your calling card. Keep writing the humor. But if you want to broaden your audience, you have to write more of a story. My first book was just one thing after another. It didn't really have a theme. It was just funny, a kind of quirky book. So I learned to write, I thought of them as being novels, but what they really are, what I've finally formulated are, this is a long-form TV show in the form of a book.
That sounds really interesting. If you can compare Better Than Even with any other book, what would that other book be?
I think, I don't know if you've read Harlan Coben's Win. I think, and it's not an exact comparison. I'm unique. I'm not saying great. I'm unique. I think if someone has read Harlan Coben's Win, I think you might compare that.
Well, I've got to admit, I love Harlan Coben's books, so I'm interested in all of this series. So when considering a new book, Jim, what comes to you first, the characters or the plot?
Well, the characters stay along. Most of them stay along, except for the ones who got killed in the last book, or just minor characters who fall aside. So the characters are there. I'm a pantser, which means I write by the seat of my pants. I have a plot in my mind, but it evolves as I write along.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I've heard a lot of authors say that they are pantsers, and I don't see how else you can be. If you plot it out and your character takes you on a whole different track, then you're pretty much confused all the rest of the way. So good for you on that. Jim, you write about contemporary issues such as Ponzi schemes and cryptocurrency. What is it about these issues that draw you to them?
Well, I spent 35 years in the financial industry. So that's what I think I bring some knowledge to that the average person doesn't have. So I can write about financial themes with confidence. And that's what my stories are based on.
That makes sense. So is JR involved in the cryptocurrency world, or how does that play in with his story if it's not giving too much away?
Well, the second book is called The Bitcoin Gambit, and JR reluctantly gets involved with cryptocurrency, and that's when the fun begins.
Even though you were in the financial industry, as you mentioned, for a long time, did you find yourself always wanting to write and publish stories?
Yes, I kind of had to choose what I was going to do when I was a young man, and I wanted to eat and feed my family, so I got a real job instead of writing, but I always wanted to write. And I got the opportunity to write an article about being a Jeopardy contestant while I was in the financial business. And I had success at that, and it made me want to write even more.
That's interesting. So were you a Jeopardy contestant, or did you just
No, yes, I was. I didn't just make that up. I was a Jeopardy contestant. And to answer, when everybody raises their hand at this point when I'm speaking in public, I lost. I bet it all on the last question and lost. But I did get to write an article about it that was published in the Hartford Courant Sunday magazine. I was the cover boy on their magazine section, and that was a really rewarding experience.
My gosh, you've got an interesting story, and I think we could probably just talk about you for quite some time. But I'd like to know now, what kind of research do you do to ensure the believability of your stories?
The wonder of the internet, for example, when I got involved with cryptocurrency, not many people understand cryptocurrency. And I did a lot of research on it. And to tell you the truth, I don't understand all about it. And when I say that, people think, oh, well, he doesn't know. No, I know quite a bit about it. I know what major issue I want to write about, or the first book was about Ponzi schemes. I know about that. But then I go in and look more in depth, and there's so much stuff out there now. It's pretty easy to do the research.
Tell me a little bit about your book cover. It's very, very dark. What does that graphic mean to you?
Well, the antagonist in the book is a female assassin named Sierra Quinn, and people love to hate her. So that's why she's on the book cover in the red dress.
Okay, that makes sense. Jim, who would you say has influenced your writing the most? Are you going to take us back to Harlan Coben?
I think Nelson DeMille, who isn't as active. Harlan Coben is still more active. Nelson DeMille, a lot of people haven't read him. His popular books were 25 years ago. And he's still writing, but not as popular anymore. But he's probably the biggest influence.
Interesting. So if your book were to become a movie, who would you choose to play JR?
I've thought about that. Can I pick anybody? Because I think George Clooney would be good.
Oh, wow. You'd get a lot of women lovers of that book if you did that.
Well, he has salt and pepper hair. He's the right body type. So I wonder if George would take the call. I don't know, but he'd be perfect.
Is there a moral of this story, or maybe a message in Better Than Even that you want your readers to remember?
Yes, there's an underlying theme to all my books, which is greed. And how much greed is acceptable? When does it cross over the line? I mean, everybody's greedy to some extent, but even in just society in general, there's an awful lot of greed going on. What are we going to do about it?
Oh, boy, that's a wide open question if there ever was one. Well, looking back, Do you think that there was any one particular book that made such an impact on you that that's when you knew you wanted to write?
Yeah, I would say Plum Island by Nelson DeMille.
Love it. So now I get to ask, and I'm very eager to hear. Will you please read a short excerpt from Better Than Even for our listeners?
Yes, this is chapter 1. It's J.R. Johnson, the narrator, speaking. Did you ever lose $1.5 billion? I don't mean some rogue trader losing $1 billion or so of his investment firm's money. I mean $1.5 billion of your own money. And I'm not talking about some super rich high-tech company founder having his stock go down one day, so his theoretical net worth goes from $50 billion to $48.5 billion. I mean your personal investment account being worth $1.5 billion and having it go to zero. That's not accurate. Due to some transaction fees with the brokerage firms I dealt with, I owed them a few dollars. I had to pay them, so my accounts would be zero. Professional interviewers, Oprah, Mike Wallace, Larry King always asked, so how does it feel to win the Academy Award? Or how does it feel to be sentenced to death for a crime you didn't commit? Bob Dylan saying, how does it feel? It's a great question. So how does it feel to lose $1.5 billion?
That sent cold chills up my spine, just the very thought of it, because first of all, I cannot fathom having that much money. And second of all, after I finally grasped having it, losing it, oh my Lord, that sounds very interesting. So now I want to know.
Well, you'll
Jim,
have to read the Bitcoin Gambit because you'll have to see how he loses it.
Well, now I want to know, where can we learn more about you, about all of your other books, and where can we purchase Better Than Even?
Well, let's keep it real simple. Go to my website, jimflynn6.com.
And what's all on that website?
Well, you'll see my books, and you can click on the book, and it'll take you directly to a major retail site where you can buy it with another click.
And there's information about you. I believe you've got a blog. You've got some interviews. Is that correct?
Yeah, they can learn some more about me, and I'm working on improving that.
Okay. We've been talking with Jim Flynn, author of Better Than Even. Trillion is the new billion. Jim, thank you so much for sharing JR's story with us today. There's enough humor in your book to keep a lot of readers interested where they wouldn't normally go for just a regular thriller. So that's a great idea. And this is a thriller that a lot of us can sink our teeth into, and I can't wait to do just that. So when you publish the next book in your series, will you please come back and chat with us again?
Absolutely. Loved it, Linda. Thanks for having me.
This is a very timely thriller involving Bitcoin, Putin, and the good guys you can't help but love. It is well written and moves fast with just enough twists and turns to keep it suspenseful and hold your interest. This should definitely be made into a movie. As you are reading, you will understand why I say that it would make a great action thriller film. If that review and our conversation today has left you wanting more, go to jimflynn6.com and order your copy today. And when you finish reading, don't forget to post your review. And please share this interview with your friends so that they too may become acquainted with our author. And remember, the Author Show may be accessed at any time at theauthorshow.com. Plus, selected interviews can also be found on major platforms such as Amazon Fire TV, the Roku channel, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and many more. Whether you're an author who would like to be featured or a reader in search of new books, theauthorshow.com is a really great place to start.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. Theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.